This coochie, this kitty cat, this punani, if you will, has been on lockdown for over a decade now. So for 10 years, or actually I would say over 10 years, I have been celibate, and it has been pretty chill. And I'll actually wager you one more. I have been single since birth as well. And I just wanted to go ahead and share this experience because I think, you know, to me, this is normal life, but I've come to realize to some, maybe this is not normal. To some, people might even find it as radical. And I think like being online, it can be very easy to be siloed in one's ways. And, you know, I think to myself, like living as a woman that's unpartnered and just living life and not really thinking about partnership as much as normal business. But I know that out there, maybe there's women who have never been unpartnered, and there are women who are still very much in the depths of patriarchy, etc., who might not even fathom what life could look like just being on their own. And, you know, life ebbs and flows. You're not going to always be on your own, or you may be on your own for a long time. Who knows? But I just wanted to share this experience for a few reasons. I'll talk about a little bit of them later. But I'll break it down in, I guess, how I ended up being celibate, what life has been like, what I've been doing, you know, over these years. And then I guess what my plans look like in the future. And I guess I'll jump into it. I will say, I think being celibate and unpartnered has really allowed for strong development and an understanding and building of sense of self, and giving me the leeway to grow and just focus on myself and honestly build a life that I love and dream of. And I think being unpartnered has played a big role in being able to really lock in, as you will, and start to really actualize a life that I dream of. And to be honest, it wasn't really some grand thing or grand decision that I made to be celibate. Like, you know, I didn't really just sit down one day and be like, I'm gonna be celibate for 10 years. I think it was more so just observation experience, and then coming to a point where I wanted to set some things in place for self-preservation and as a means of self-preservation, and that in turn ended up leading into celibacy. So I guess I'll jump into how you got here. We'll take it back from the start, the top. I was an undesirable child. Yes, I was what people would consider an ugly duckling. I don't think actually, when I look back on my pictures, I was a cute little child. I was just chunky and, you know, dark skinned. I was always outside. I'm brown skinned, so you may be like, oh, you're not dark skinned, but like I'm brown skinned, and if you know, your tone fluctuates, and I was outside. Like I was playing outside, and I was a chunky kid. I'm tall, so even as a young age, I was taller than a lot of people. So even at a young age, when you start to see people kind of that intergender relation type of play, like even as early as like first grade, kindergarten, people having crushes, and then into like third grade, people having little boyfriends and things like that. And as an undesirable kid, I dare not to say like I had a crush on somebody, you know. Kids are mean. So like I wasn't, when like my peers and things were like engaged in that type of activity, I wasn't really engaged in anything like that. I was more so playing outside. Like I said, I was outside running around, having fun, and then focusing on like studying and grade. So like I wasn't really into that type of thing then. And I think that actually plays a role later on. I think it actually plays a role of how somebody kind of grows and how they deal with relationships and things like that later on. But then coming into high school, I had what the people call, I guess, a glow up, you know. I was suddenly more desirable, and then at the right time of like hormones and things running rampant around the place. So I was like, okay, I guess I finally can delve in like this thing that people call relationships and see like what that's like. And I think from a young age, even at a like young age, I had always like just really wanted and like focus on connection and deep connection. And that's not even like romantic relationship wise, it's not synonymous to that. Like even just platonic relationships with people, I wanted to be known, and then I wanted to know the people that I loved, and felt cared for at last. And I think that paired with the indoctrination I think a lot of young girls get with romance and fairy tales, that's what my expectations were of like romance, and what I ended up to seeking after, a passionate love, or somebody cares for me, I care for them, and it's just la 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 la. But I feel like I quickly found out that was actually not always the case. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like majority of the time that ends up not being the case when it comes to romantic, especially heterosexual romantic relationships. And I was like, oh, okay. Like what I was really met with was like a landscape of lustful males, lustful teenage boys, etc. And it was like, okay. Nonetheless, I still was like optimistic. I'm a hopeless romantic, thinking that let's see what it's like. Let's see if I find out. And it just, I think with every different interaction, it just led me to be like, this is questionable. I think the equation was often like me, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, looking for pure romantic love, was often met with like a hunching, fiending young adolescent boy or whatever that didn't really care the means that they needed to take to try to get over and, get a little cootie cat. And I think luckily for me, I have a lot of pride. I think I'm observant, and like I said, it means of like I like always think about like self-preservation, and just thought, how do I like protect myself? I didn't really succumb to a lot of like the antics, but eventually, when I saw somebody that suited my fancy, I found myself in the dreadful situationship, the dreadful S word, a situationship. And I think when the opportunity of sex arrived, it was a distasteful presentation of sex, but that's a whole different conversation then. When it arrives, I'm a very curious person. So eventually I was like, okay, let's see what this is like. Because I had flicked and diddled the bean before. I have watched Corn, and orgasms feel great. Like I was in my bedroom making it do what it do. So I was like, okay, I finally gave in, and I was like, well, let's see what this is like. And it wasn't that big of a deal. I was like, this is sex? Oh, okay. And I think that paired with, I said it was a situationship, so paired with not having like my emotions and being treated really well, I think that really did something to me. Like I was in a state where like I was in my emotions and like feeling this type of conflict that I didn't engage in relationships and things like that, like in my childhood and then coming to adolescence. It was all very, it was just a turbulent time. And I was like, I don't care for this. I don't like feeling like this. I don't like to be treated like this. So I kind of thought to myself, what do I do for this not to happen again? And I feel like, I'm not particularly religious. I'm not prude. But I did understand how sex is a spiritual thing. Like the connection of the bodies can be a spiritual thing. Yes, I guess people have different relationships with sex. I do think connection of the body means something. And I just told myself, like, I'm just not going to have sex with anybody again unless they like really truly care for me and respect me and are considerate and delicate and cautious with me and my emotions and my body. And I think I just made that choice then, and I ended up never really finding somebody like that. I never really ended up in positions like that. I think the further that I would like explore and like have different interactions with men and things like that, I only became further disillusioned with what I guess romantic partnership, etc., looks like for women and heterosexual women. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't think I really care for this. And one thing led to another. Celibate for 10 years, and over time, even learning more, I think the cost of companionship and what that really looks like for a woman, and I feel like the loss of self and what that can really look like. And it just made me think a bit more. And I think the extended period of time that I have been celibate, I think I really got grounded in, and it just became easier and easier to do so when I came to understand how beautiful and the type of enjoyment that could come with life as a single woman. It was like, oh, I'm having a ball, and I came to see like how that, I kind of took that for granted, how easily that can go away when you're partnered. Because I think with women, oftentimes it comes with so much compromise. Like, I used to think about when you watch, I would watch like, little teen movies, and like, let's say there was a couple that was going off to college, and they would say like, oh no, you shouldn't be in this relationship. And I would think to myself like, what's the big deal? Like, can't they get ready for college and go and be in this relationship? But as I got older, I realized, like I said, how much it can cost to be partnered, especially at like a pivotal developmental time in your life. So I think, I just realized what I was gaining from singleness and being on my own and just discovering more. And that pushed me into being celibate for a long time. So that is how I essentially ended up being celibate. I want to look to make sure I'm not like missing anything there. I don't think so. I don't think I am. But yeah, that's how I ended up being celibate. Now let's talk about what life has looked like in that 10 years of no bang, shaka, bang, bang. And it has been filled with a lot. I think I focus a lot on creativity. I think I talk about creativity a lot. I focus a lot on creativity and self and understanding myself and what I like. And I think that also has to do with like solitude as well, not just companionship, but I think solitude from like friendships and etc. But I spent a lot of time to myself, indulge in that creativity and understanding me. I like focus on music, going to school for music, working on and writing different melodies and trying to learn a little bit of everything I can for different instruments, sewing, just doing a lot of different things, like learning how to pole dance and doing little fun things and exploring what I could creatively and pushing myself in that regards, stumbling into ceramics. I just spent a lot of time trying to take ideas and bringing them to life. That preoccupies a lot of time. You're in your mental, and then it's like, imagine being partnered, and especially being in a bad partnership. I think you'll be finding yourself constantly in turmoil thinking about some other person when you could be focused on yourself and so many different things. And then I think later on I went into travel. So you've been on my channel, on my page, you've seen how I love to travel, and it's been such a fulfilling thing for me. And traveling on my own, solo traveling, it has allowed me to see different ways of life and different ways that I can live. It really opened my mind and see that life is not small. There's so many different perspectives out there and so many different things happening. We are different from others, but we're the same as others. It just taught me a lot, and it allowed me to expand. And I think from there, working to build those funds to travel, and then further, having that big girl job and saving up, I was able to invest in a home and finally buy, my first house, and being able to do that on my own, and being able to build my own little party studio. I'm in it right now, at my own little personal space in my place, in my house, and also with my home, being able to provide a home for a doggy, and getting my girl Gigi, and having a beautiful relationship with my dog Genevieve. She has been such a nice companion. You see about people having dogs and dogs being your best friend, and I've always loved dogs, but I never really had that experience. And I always wonder well, what does that mean? What is that really like? And it really is something. So I think those 10 years have really been fulfilling, And also, shameless plug, I want to say that I recently released an EP, and I think it touches on a lot of the themes that I've been going through and experiencing throughout these years, from self-discovery, self-actualization, feelings of wanting to be free, wanting to explore. It's in my EP called Lost World. You can download it on my website. It's not on streaming right now, but if you're in the market for some music, download it. You can listen to it on your phone or burn it on a CD, and that's my little shameless plug right now. But I feel like I've had a lot of time to just explore and do different things and learn different things and really take the time to understand myself. And I think a key thing out of all of this that I really want to hone in on is I've been able to do this without compromise. And that's the key thing there. not just being able to focus on what I want to do and what I want to consider, and not always having to compromise, which I said before, there's this cost that comes to companionship. And oftentimes, a lot of times, I think it's the women making that compromise. It's not always, but I think a lot of times that's what we see, and that's what is really expected. So I think, being celibate, focusing on self, and I think deriving pleasure from other areas and means has just been, I think, a cathartic. I don't know, I'm trying to find the different words, like a really enriching, cathartic is a good word for it, just a really enriching experience for myself. And I wouldn't really have it any other way, to be honest with you. If I could go back, I would tell myself to further lock it and to like really not even pay attention to boys, because like I said, growing up, you just see it in front of you, like people are in relationships and all these types of things, and you wonder like, oh, is this what you're supposed to be doing? But sometimes it's not really all hype. It's okay to not be bored. It's okay to worry and just focus on yourself, and to just try different things outside of being with somebody else. I think I'm grateful I was allowed to experience something like that. And I think, like I said, it's helped me get further along as where I want to be in life. So I guess I'll say what's next. What's next after my 10-year celibacy? Let me make sure I touched on everything again. But yeah. Oh wait, no, actually I forgot one more thing. As I wanted to touch on, yes, I've been celibate, but I'm not a monk. I haven't been deprived of pleasure per se. I diddle the bean all the time. I flick the skittle all the time. So, and like I said, I found pleasure in other different ways. I'm a sensual person. I'm actually a very sensual person. I can feel pleasure in like a lot of different ways and areas. So it hasn't felt like, I really haven't felt like I've been that lacking in these years of like being celibate and not partnered. I think it's something, I'm a curious person, like I said, and I want to explore. And that, as they say, like love is like one of those human experiences that people want to be able to experience. And I think finding true love can be an extraordinary thing, but I realized that it can be kind of harder to come by than what was initially led on. So now what's next? I've been 10 years celibate. What's next? Will I be going another 10 years and trying to hit the 20-year mark of celibacy, or will I go out on a bang, shigga, bang, bang spree? I don't know. I think it would be fun to go on a freak nasty expedition. Like I said before, I am very curious, and I would love to learn. I love to learn about many things. So I'd also love to learn about sexuality and love and what that looks like across different cultures and ethnicities. I think that'd be really interesting to explore. But I think the way reality is looking like, it may be looking like another 10 years of celibacy. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I think gender relationships are coming to an even more of a boiling point over the years. I wonder what it looks like compared to, like, let's say first wave feminism and things like that. But gender relationships, I think we are like at a tension point with the incompatibility between, not incompatibility, but just like this disconnect between men and women, and how like women are perceived. Like I said before, I thought my life, just not being partnered, not particularly always actively looking for a partner is kind of normal, but some may even see it as radical, and especially like how I live my life. And I really want to be free. Like, I want to be a free person. I've come to realize that like a lot of men and things like that don't care for that. So, what the future looks like, I really don't know. I'm not really like I said, I'm not really one for that much compromise. So I'm not looking to compromise that type of my freedom and the life that I've built for myself. So it may be looking like another 10 years of celibacy. But yeah, that's my experience. I want to share this for a multitude of reasons. And one is, like I said, I want just to be a document of what a way of life for women can be. That's like thinking to herself free and not really partnered, but also too, like I said, gender relationships are the tension, and there are powers that be that want to disenfranchise women and want, like, literally women like me are probably discuss them, and they want women to be having babies and taking care of homes and not really focus on themselves. They want women to focus on others and take care of others, and there are actual pushes for that to happen. Like, literally, we saw how Project 2025 came about. It felt like this, people thought it was this crazy document, till now they're like halfway through the document. There's another document by the same foundation that's called Save America, Save the Family, something like that. And like, it's just points and notes that are just, once again, trying to set women back. And with that being said, there are active campaigns being made. You know, we've seen the whole trad wife thing. We see how that's being pushed. Some people are getting paid on the back end, you know, to push this type of messaging. So I just wanted to be a blurb, an excerpt that, like, you can live a beautiful life. You can live a happy, fun life to yourself. And like I said, or not even, it doesn't always have to be to yourself. Like I said, like, life ebbs and flows. One day you might be partnered, one day you might not be, but just to know that, like, there is a beautiful life out there for you, even if you aren't partnered. And even if you are partnered, that you don't have to compromise and give up so much of yourself, you know. So I just wanted to share what my experience looks like so people can have that document out there as well. Like I said, we're in crazy times, but I feel like also take what I said with a grain of salt as well, because I'm one experience, and I think this experience, I think companionship and partnership, heterosexual relationships with women, I think the costs of partnership can vary depending on so many factors, like race, ethnicity, and class as well. Because, like, I think, for example, let's say arguments of labor and female labor. I don't know, but I imagine to myself that might not be a conversation that's happening as much for people who have high finances, who can outsource their labor, you know. And I think conversations of money, and that's often a big point of contention for a lot of relationships. I don't think it goes away with wealth as well, but just it can look different. So your partnership with people and how you engage in partnership can look very different. For example, somebody who's like working class may have a woman who's working class may have a different experience in a relationship than a woman who's kind of more wealthy, middle class, who can have fun, go on dates, and go travels with a boo or with a dick, than with a dip, than with a woman who doesn't have access to those things and may be expected to help build this home and help provide all these finances, all these different things. And like I said, with race and ethnicity, you know, Black women, you know, there's conversations oftentimes of like Black women not being desirable and this, that, and the third. Propaganda to me, that's in one ear out the other. Black women flying on foot. But you know, there's a lot of Black women out there that don't even see themselves as desirable and such. And I just wanted to show that, like, even if you're not playing the game of desirability, looking for partnership, there's a beautiful life out there for you as well, if you so choose to, and if you so choose to invest in self. But yeah, that's it for me. That's been my 10 years of celibacy. If things change, I guess I'll come back and let y'all know and tell y'all what that experience is like of partnership. But last thing, I would love to hear what other women's experiences are like, whether you're also unpartnered and been celibate, or whether you are partnered. Like, what's your experience been like? And if you are partnered and have a good partnership, how have you, not just good partnership, but if you're partnered and you have been able to retain yourself and not lose yourself in partnership, what has that been like for you, and what step did you take to get into such a companionship and partnership with another? And yeah, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time. See you next time. Bye-bye.